starting with Duviri, the Argo Vel needs 60 Pathos clamps to buy from the weapons on the side when you start in Duviri. So, 4 Steel Path Duviri runs giving you 15 each, or 6 regular runs giving you 10 each. And honestly, it's Duviri. An extremely easy activity, at least to me. Get it done within an hour to an hour and a half by rushing it and buy the weapon. At least once you buy it in Duviri, you can use it in Duviri, but on the actual Warframe side of it, you get a blueprint to use, which the materials are also easy. One rare thing that has a few farming locations, one uncommon item that you can get a bunch of, and 2 common materials. Duviri is an extremely easy activity to me. Getting the materials is also extremely easy. Once you even have a bunch of decrees, it becomes even easier to do things in there, meaning it's going to go into S tier. And thankfully, it's worth it because the Argo and Vel are a pretty nice crit focused sword and shield with a majority of slash damage. Swording, 32 crit, 2.4 crit multiplier, and 24 status. With a passive that each heavy attack sends a ricocheting wave that does a decent bit of damage but is a bit hard to aim. Not only that, if you guard and they hit your guard, they'll be staggered and you can finish them. So allowing you to make a heavy attack build, a general use build, and maybe a staggering finish build, completely up to you. When blocking attacks, you also get a stacking buff called Sylvan Aegis, which I think it should be changed to Argo and Vel because Sylvan Aegis is a weapon, but it stacks up to, I think, 3 or 4 times, giving crit and crit damage to it on your next attack. However, I didn't really see that much of a use for it, and the counter kind of just kept resetting. Still, it's not a slow weapon, and the stance it comes with works, giving some pretty good combos that aren't a hassle to use, and a good blocking attack that lunges you forward. It hits pretty hard, and I like it. A tier. The Arum Spinosa originally was going to just be in the same tier as the Sporothrix, because it is literally the exact same farm as the Sporothrix, just 1 tier of Arcana Vault lower. However, with the Folly update, it was put into Necroloid's wares. So, I instantly went to Necroloid, traded in some items for standing, and bought it that way. The standing items you get from doing the vaults anyway and killing Necromechs, so you can kill 2 birds with 1 stone. And I already used what I got from farming the Sporothrix. Thankfully, you only need a rank 2 with Necroloid, and the blueprint for the Arum Spinosa is just the parts and 1 rare gem each. I put it in S tier for the change, but without the change, it would be the exact same tier as the Sporothrix. What's funny is that it would also be in the same tier as the Sporothrix in potential too, because it's just okay. The actual using of the weapon is good. Both stances that it can start with are great. I prefer Votive Onslaught to Slicing Feathers, but still. It has a 9 crit, 1.9 crit multiplier, and 37 status, so it's a status focused melee with slash damage. However, it has a passive where each heavy attack sends out 9 feathers that honestly really just suck to aim. They have good damage, and that's a plus, but it's like an instant transmission shotgun blast, and again, hard to aim. I'd rather just ignore the heavy attack and use it as a fast fan blade, which I'm pretty sure there are better fan blades that you can either build a hybrid or have more crit and a decent amount of status that you can build, again, hybrid. B tier. Everything I said about the Argo and Vel applies here too, the only difference being the materials needed. One is fish materials, which you can just do this fish activity where you eat fish as a fish to get fangs and do it infinitely at the same pond. Then it's easy to get uncommon materials and common materials again, S tier again. But unlike the Argo and Vel, this thing's really not that great. Automatically, it is a 2-handed Nikana with a crappy stance. It's slow and misses. The damage it has favors slash with 34 crit, 3.0 crit multiplier, and 22 status. It's not bad, but its stance holds it back. It also comes with a passive where if you block and melee, you do a 10 meter ground pulse that staggers enemies and does heat damage. It's really good at staggering and building up your combo counter if there's enough enemies. You can also be attacked during it, and it does extremely pitiful damage. That's about it. You can use just any other crit melee weapon with better stances and better passives, or just the Gwendal as a stat stick. I'd say D to C tier. The Cerata is a dojo weapon I had from before the series started, so let's look at the research requirements and the building requirements. The research requirements really aren't that bad. Some mutagen samples, plastids, cryotic, and polymer bundle. Mutagen samples you can farm in the derelict, like really easily. I did the HEMA by myself. Like, I can approve. In Cryotic, you can just go to Earth and farm there at a pretty easy low level. Now, if it was tenfold, if you're in a higher tier clan, I could see it being terrible, but for solos or a just friends clan, it's fine. Now, the manufacturing side of it, kinda not so fine. 4 mutagen mass, 2500 cryotic, 1200 plastids, and 1 forma. That part is honestly kind of meh. Not terrible, just meh. Spend a decent chunk of time getting some cryotic, and a long time for some mutagen mass, either having enough mutagen samples to build 4 over 2 days, or do some invasions and wait, or hoping that Fortuna is on the bounty rotation that gives you a mutagen mass and not detonite injectors or field drons. And you also have to give up a precious forma that takes 23 hours to build. To me, it's B tier with those materials, but for me, they're not so terrible, and I would give it an A, but I can see them being annoying to get, so I'll stick with B. Next thing is, it's a thrown melee weapon. I don't like thrown melees. I think it's, at best, okay. The normal attack has a 15 crit and 30 status with a 2.0 crit multiplier. The throw has 4 more crit, 3 more status, and 0.1 more on the crit multiplier. Again, my problems with thrown melee is that the throw part sucks. The normal attack doesn't make up for it. You throw it, it misses, hits nothing, comes back. You throw it, hits something, it may bounce or it may not bounce on another thing and come back. I know there's a Glaive Prime build that utilizes something like this, and that they're meant to be paired with a secondary, but you can just as quickly pull out your gun and shoot anyway, by aiming with a normal melee. It's just not good and not my favorite type of melee weapon. Same tier as Kestrel, honestly. Lich weapons. Again. TLDR. Grab a disc from a Tekrot enemy, hack a thing. Then, during missions or bounties, there's a chance your Tekrot boyband member can spawn. If they don't, the chance increases by 25% and you have to do other missions until you find him. You can equip 3 antivirus mods and stab the guy to find out which mod you need way faster than doing it one by one. Once you found it, you keep that mod on and equip 2 more mods that increase the disinfection rate. The mod that you need adds 5%. The others add 10 to 15% of disinfection rate. Once found, the missions reset, or if you go through all of them without finding him, the missions reset. I like to do it in the order of exterminate missions, then the capture, since you have to spend 5 minutes in a survival and having a 75% chance on a capture is pretty good. Once you reach 100% disinfection, you go and fight the boyband member in space after killing 2 speakers. Dodge the attacks they shoot out, then DPS them down. Repeat. Then vanquish your boyband member to get live heart cells. You need 10 to purchase a Coda weapon from Eleanor, and they have various elemental affixes per rotation that is, I assume, random. You have to change them with the device. No progenitors here. Finally, your boyband member can drop more than 10 to 15 to be exact. You can also see the number on your lich screen. I personally don't think I've seen more than 12. You also have this mod that gives you a 10% chance to get a live heart cell when you stab the lich. So all in all, Coda farming is better than the other lich farming, especially since the mod can be used 3 times per lich. However, when you get the same mod twice in a row, but you already used it up on a prior lich and you have to go farm again and you get 6 computer cops over and over and over again, you kinda don't want to do the survival mission bounty to get the mod drop anymore and just buy it off someone for 5 plat. Farming them should go probably in It Depends, but it's semi-static. The abilities are the same, nothing else really changes except for the drop chance. So it should probably go in It Depends, but again, all Coda farming goes in A. They're really not that bad. Now we get to truly start. The Coda Cost Assist, I think that's how you say it, is a status scythe with 19 crit, 2.3 multiplier, and 41 status. a high base damage that can have a progenitor bonus, innate corrosive, and a heavy attack that throws a corrosive wave at enemies. The wave leaves behind corrosive pools with a 100% status chance. They are decently sized as well, but they really aren't that great to aim because you essentially have to aim straight up in order to get the full length of it. Aiming at the feet or legs or just any lower body part doesn't result in a good length of wave, so that restriction is kind of whatever at best. Overall, it's pretty good. Has a good range pretty much all the time, better than its normal counterpart for sure, so I'd say about an A tier, but since it's a Coda weapon that you can put multiple progenitor elements on, aka multiple different variants, not multiple progenitor elements, they all will go into it depends. And I want to clarify, because probably some progenitor bonuses depending on element is probably better on certain weapons, that's why it goes on it depends, because we're not ranking all of them. I really like the Coda Hirudo. It's definitely not because it has a 34% crit chance, 3.1 multiplier, and 18% status. Surely it's not because it attacks fast with its stance and has a passive that heals 5% of your health per crit, even though that's probably not really going to matter at all in higher level content because you will either be one shot or have enough damage reduction where it doesn't matter. But it also increases your max HP. You also move 5% faster because it's technically a sparring weapon. Still, its damage is low, but it attacks fast. Its stance is pretty good. Obviously, it goes into it depends, but I'd like to put it in A. The Coda Meyer is fun, but just okay. We're going back to a status melee, because it does have good stats, good stances, and attacks fast. Has a passive where slams apply a toxin effect, but melee combo slams don't work. So being forced to jump and slam consistently to use its passive is not really good. That, or something is bugged and or wrong, or I'm doing something wrong, because I've read that people can use combo slams for it, but it's just not working for me. I don't understand. This is also on top of feeling better using the Coda Hirudo, so I feel like I might just need more status mods to be very efficient with it, since status melees are pretty good, but at the same time, I could just run a crit melee in some status and be just as good, if not better, especially if I actually go and get the galvanized mods that I probably think would, benefit the Coda Meyer a lot more. It's a little weird, but maybe I just need to change my thoughts around status melees entirely and learn something more with the galvanized mods, or learn something more about status melee in general, but it's still not bad. I'd say B tier, but obviously it depends. Again, I'm going to say this at the beginning of almost all of these weapons, but the Coda Motivore is fun. I won't tell you the stats yet because its passive affects the stats. And by stats, I mean crit status and the whole kit and caboodle. But I will start with slash, puncture, and impact because the Motivore has an equal amount of slash, impact, and puncture. When you dip further into one of them, it increases a certain stat on the weapon. With puncture, it increases your range to 4 meters. With impact, it increases the attack speed to 1.4 instead of 1. With slash, it increases its status chance by 100%. If you don't dip at all, it just does the slash stat bonus automatically, so 100% more status chance. So it's just kinda nuts. Starting with a 25 crit, 2.3 crit multiplier, and 30 status chance without the increase to status chance. So if you increase it, it's at 60. It's also a hammer, so the stance can be slow at times, but can be mitigated to a degree. It has good damage, has the progenitor bonus obviously, can be built in a few ways actually with all these increases, and I'd say S tier, but obviously it depends, especially for this weapon. And now, finally, with the Coda Path Assist, my least favorite weapon type, thrown melee. However, it may have become one of my favorites with this one. The main reason being, I decided to actually use the thrown melee weapon as a thrown melee weapon with a couple of mods. However, it still suffers from the things I said before. It's a thrown melee weapon. The bounces are bipolar on when it wants to bounce from an enemy to enemy, and your melee is useless until it comes back. especially for movement, which is what I like using it for a lot of the time. Saying that, I saw there are mods that can counteract that, making it faster and bounce less and giving you a spam explosive playstyle. Although at the same time, you kinda just forego melee movement and melee in general, which is fine because it's a playstyle, and honestly, I'm starting to like it. The Path Assist really helps that too because it does have good stats. Innate viral damage on top of the damage it comes with, a lot of status, and a passive that spawns maggots that last for 10 seconds. They latch onto enemies, staggering them and exploding in decent damage. It's a really good weapon. I think it's S tier for what it can do, honestly. The numbers are insane from what I've seen, and it's a playstyle I'd have to get used to, meaning that the other thrown melees may be looked at again. However, if we were to talk about it being a regular melee weapon, I would say B tier. I really don't like using glaives as a melee, but, you know, it's a thrown melee weapon. That's the point. There's really not much to say with this outro, honestly. Just the next video is going to be Stein X Prime and his two items, Orion and Sirius, and I'm counting them as one, not separate because it's an Equinox situation. And finally, the Dex Nakana. So, yeah, I didn't really exercise that much, so I'm not really going to count it. I'm going to start again new, again, yada yada. I've been lazy. So, yeah, if you watched to the end, thank you for watching, and as always, take care of yourself.